Two countries. But they had enough driver, you could just bring it in.
Right.
Everybody's not going to do anything. We're going to have one. That's I took my bill there for my speech. Everybody now. You took me to school. That's another job. They said, like overtime, pay you better. Ain't you paying better? And how long do it take you to do this? How you gonna make it money? Do it take over hours? See you.
Because I'm only going to myself.
Yeah. Oh, them two girls in Black Creek. So that's another job. See. And then if they pay you by the hour, they say the hour, you ain't making the hour rate. You might make 20. If they pay you 12 somehow, you $24.
Nice too. That's what nice too. Yes.
I'm doing one side.
I can't block these folk camera though. Hey, how everybody doing?
You don't sitting in the back. Sitting in the back, you put me on the front line. Why sitting in the back? Take the foot. Why are you about to sit in the back? You see out front.
They have to. If people sign up, they have to buy from 6. That's all. They're gonna say it. They know what you're talking about.
Huh?
Sign up to speak.
Y'all gonna do a good job. They gonna put me out of here. They gonna put me out. I'm not gonna shut up.
No,
They're gonna answer you.
Yeah, they gonna sure put me out of here.
but see,
On this live street. That's the agenda. Yeah, if you can share it. Yeah, well, I just brought it to you. Okay. Just share it. That's just the order of the thing. When I finish my little 3 minutes before I leave, I'm gonna just ask that all that are in attendance, that bus driver, car driver, aides, please pay. So we'll have a show of solidarity.
Mic check 1, 2.
Still got your certification? Your certification. That's the dates for 25 through the summer and everything.
Okay.
That's the dates. I thought you wanted it.
Okay.
Check with people. And it's still gonna be online, whether it's research or new. But it's got all the new dates, it's got all the summer dates.
Okay.
So that's why I brought it in, to make sure.
Good evening. The time is 7:03 p.m. and I would like to call to order the Monday, June 9th, 2025 meeting of the Southampton County School Board. We have 9 of our 9 school board members present, so we do have a quorum. Is there a board member who needs to add an item to the agenda tonight? So if there is no addition, the agenda will stand approved as presented. The minutes of the regular May 12th, 2025 meeting and the special call meeting on May 28th were included in your board documents. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Those are the sets of minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to note that it doesn't say that I asked that we contact the attorney before I decided to leave the meeting.
I'm sorry, it doesn't say you can ask to contact the attorney.
Yeah, I asked you, could we contact the attorney, like, so that we could figure it out that night, and that's not noted.
I didn't hear you say that night, so Ms. Harness can replay the tape and see if she asked that. Ms. Harness, can you double check? Because that was the plan all along, and I know I said that.
I just asked that, I had said, can we do it that night?
Oh, Nancy, that was no. But would you check, double check to make sure that, Ms. King wants her comment included in the minutes. Are there any other notes to make to the minutes? Then we, need a motion to approve the minutes, including the note from Ms. King.
I'd like to make a motion that we table the minutes until next month when we can review any changes that are made.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
We have a motion by from Dr. Kendall, a second by Ms. King to table the minutes. Are there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please raise your hands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, except 5 in favor of tabling the minutes from the call meeting of May 28th. So the minutes from the call meeting of May 28th will be tabled until July.
Actually, I thought that was for the meeting on May 12th, was the correction. Yeah.
Why would we table the minutes for the regular meeting on May 12th? That's what we're tabling?
That's what I thought we were motioning, because that's where the comment would have been inserted.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I need to take the minutes separately then. So your motion was to table the minutes on the May 12th meeting, the one that you walked out of, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dr. Kendall. Okay, so Dr. Kendall is making a motion to table the minutes from the May 12th meeting. And it was a second by Ms. King to table the minutes of the May 12th meeting. So now, all in favor of tabling the minutes of the May 12th meeting, please raise your hands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor of tabling the May 12th meeting. All opposed to tabling the May 12th minutes, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the minutes of the May 12th meeting will not be tabled. So now we're down to the minutes from the May 28th meeting. Are there any corrections to the May 28th meeting?
approve the May 28th meeting minutes.
So we have a motion by, Ms. Bond, a second by Mr. Smith to approve the minutes of the May 28, 2025 meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So to recap, we have approved the minutes of the regular May 12th meeting, noting that Ms. King wants her comment inserted. And we have approved the minutes of the May 28th meeting. Thank you. So we're now down to recognitions, and we do not have any recognitions tonight. So now we're down to the public comment period. Although Virginia law does not require us to hold a public comment period, the Southampton County School Board chooses to do so because we believe it's important for us to hear from our community members. We value public input, and we recognize the importance of receiving that input. The public comment period is a time for board members to listen to the views and concerns of individuals regarding Southampton County Public Schools. Therefore, please do not expect board members to respond to comments or to answer questions during the public comment period. We also ask that you respectfully follow a few guidelines. And one guideline is that members wishing to speak sign up in the lobby prior to the start of the meeting. The second is that each speaker limits his or her time to 3 minutes. We do have a visible timer to help the speakers in the audience keep up with the time allocation. Speakers may not give or yield their speaking time to other people, and speakers should address their comments to the board and not to the superintendent or other audience members. We also ask that audience members refrain from comments and demonstrations such as booing, hissing, or clapping. So I will call up the two speakers in the order in which they signed up. So the first
Yes, at the last board meeting, the board requested that we look at the surrounding districts to see whether or not they were open or closed during spring break and Christmas. And so we did that, and you all have that information in your packet. And it appears that for spring break, only Southampton and Petersburg are open. Everyone else in our area is closed, and that's Franklin, Isle of Wight, Sussex, Suffolk, Prince George, and Brunswick. And then when we looked at the winter break, Southampton is the only school division that is open. And all of the others, Franklin, Petersburg, Isle of Wight, Sussex, Suffolk, Prince George, and Brunswick are closed. So you also asked about the accrual of leave time. And I'll have Ms. Clark to come forward with that information. And then you also asked about the cost of the accrual of leave time. And you know, everyone's paid differently. So of course, that is going to be contingent upon what that person's daily rate of pay is, what the amount of their accrual would be. But as far as how we implement the accrual policy, Ms. Joel will talk about that.
Good evening. It has been our practice. I've been here 40 years. So anyway, the accrual of leave for 12-month employees who get vacation time, basically during the first 5 years of employment, they accrue 5/6 of a day. Well, what that amounts to is 2 weeks a year, or 10 days, or 2 weeks a year. So that's what they accrue for the first 5 years of employment, and they can carry over 25 days of unused leave. Now, after 5 years of employment, the accumulation goes to 1.25 days per month, or 15 days a year, 3 weeks a year. And that accumulation then can go up to 45 days that can be accumulated. Now, when, it's like Dr. Sheehan said, as far as the cost associated with that is when someone leaves, then they are paid for any accumulated vacation time at their daily rate. So that daily rate is going to fluctuate by employee. So usually, you know, we don't have that many, you know, that leave during the year where it becomes a budget issue. Any questions?
You said that it's what amounts to 3 years that they can hold?
45 days, which
right,
amounts
so,
to 20, 40, what, like 2.5 months?
Okay,
Yeah.
so if they don't use that vacation time, does it then roll over into sick time, or do they lose it altogether?
They lose that time. When they leave, they're only paid for 45 days, up to 45 days.
Right. Oh, no, I meant.
But no, it does not roll over into sick. Now, we have a personal leave policy where everyone gets 2 personal leave days a year. And if they don't use their personal leave, it rolls over as sick leave.
Okay.
And that's for all, I mean, that's
even
all
for 12-month employees?
Yeah, 12-month, 10-month, all, yes.
Okay. So if a 12-month employee, like just say I had been working here for however long and I had 45 days, then if I don't use any, when I'm getting them the next year, do I then lose those days, or I only lose them when I leave?
You lose them when you leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? No, I do want to point out that, and of course the board can always amend the calendar, but I want to call your attention to a couple of things. One is that even though the school districts mentioned do close those days, there's some other school districts that do what Southampton is doing. So school districts throughout the Commonwealth do it different ways. You know, so for example, like in Newport News, I think, for example, even though they're closed during the winter break, employees have to take a half day, 12-month employees have to take like a half day of leave, you know, so they don't just, you know, get the days. And I know that, I think in, maybe like in Dinwiddie, for example, I think that 12-month employees only get part of the spring break days. So different districts do it different ways, and I think the board has to decide what works best for, for Southampton County. I think, Richmond and Surrey used to do something similar to Southampton. I don't know what they're doing now, but Surrey used to be
Take it off.
similar.
Take it off, they don't have to use that.
Okay, to Southampton, but I know that Newport News, Norfolk, Richmond, Dinwiddie, all do something similar. And I think that we just need to decide what's best for us. Do we want to say that 12-month employees get 24 paid holidays plus the 10 annual leave days per year plus the 2 personal leave days? Or do we do a combination? So it's up to the board to decide how we want to proceed. And Dr. Shannon did include the calendar, and I think one calendar shows, the district being closed.
Draft 2 is the one
Yeah,
with the additional days.
shows the office being closed, for 3 days in November, I guess, and then in December. What's your pleasure, what's your thinking?
So I do have a question about the leave time in comparison with, say, a 10-month employee, a teacher contract. So if a 12-month employee in year 0 to 5 is getting 2 weeks of vacation time, what is a teacher? That was the question. Okay.
What's your other thinking?
First, I want to thank Dr. Chan for gathering the information that we talked about. It was very helpful. And looking at the school districts that it looks like you grabbed the majority of the districts that we'd be directly competing with for staff. And so I think that's really helpful too. So I just want to thank you for that. I do think our 12-month accrual, I know for at least one other local district, is actually a little lower in what we are able to award for vacation time here. I'd like to make a motion that we accept draft 2 as the proposed 12-month calendar.
I have a motion by Mr. Rogers.
Second.
The second by Ms. King. Any discussion on the motion?
One thing I do want to point out is I think that there's also a level of hours that work that aren't really accounted for because our central office staff does a lot of comp time. So if you look around you tonight, we have all these people here. This is not part of their regular work day, but they're here. So I think we need to take that into consideration as well. Even though they do get the 2 weeks of vacation within that 0 to 5 year, they also do a lot of coming in extra and working extra for the 12-month employees. So I think that the comp time helps to make up for those times that would allow them to be off with the rest of the staff.
Any additional comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we have approved version 2 of the 12-month employee calendar. We're now down to action items. The first action item is the financial report and payment of bills. Dr. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Carr's on her way back to the podium to discuss the financial report, payment of bills, and then she'll remain at the podium, so pleases the board, so that she can also discuss the school operating budget.
Good evening again. If I could bring your attention please to the preliminary expenditure report for the month of May. You'll notice that our revised local operating budget for this fiscal year is $37,470,531.19. Our expenditures through May 31st total $27,421,582.29. This leaves us a balance of $10,048,948.90. And please note that as of the date of this report, 73.18% has been expended from the local operating budget. The May bill list has been attached to the agenda for the board's approval tonight. Are there any questions?
I have a question, probably for Dr. Shannon.
Okay.
With ProCare, Allied Instructional, Sunbelt, and Soliant Health, do we use those just for related services like OT, speech, PT, or do we contract teachers as well?
Just for related services, we've not, utilized them for teachers yet.
Additional questions, comments?
I make a motion that we approve the bills as presented.
Have a motion by Ms. Bond, is it a second? Second by Ms. Lane. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We're now down to the revised FY 25-26 school operating budget. Dr. Shannon?
Yes, as I said, if it was okay with the board, Ms. Carl will remain at the podium and go ahead with that presentation.
I think everybody got a copy. We thought everybody got a copy.
Good, okay, thank you. All right, on May 27th, the Board of Supervisors approved $11,644,980 in local funding for the school board operating budget. This amount is $2,404,076 less than requested. Now, we've been talking about this over the last couple of months because that was what they had recommended, was level funding for the operating budget. They did include some additional funding for the purchase of the school buses, but basically level funding for the operating budget. So the budget book presented to you tonight includes the following cuts, which have been reviewed and approved by the budget committee. All the additional positions that we requested have been removed. These include the 1 special education teacher at Nottoway and Riverdale, 2 special ed teachers at the high school, 1 kindergarten parapro at Nottoway, 1 at Riverdale, and 1 at Fresh Start, and the 7 float pool staff members for the substitute teacher pool. Other positions removed include the assistant superintendent, 1 vacant social worker, and 15 instructional staff members. Now, if we maintain our current enrollment, which is currently reported as of March 31st was 2,211, if we can maintain those that enrollment, then we can retain these 15 positions. But right now, with the way the state has projected our enrollment at 2,114, in order to balance the budget, we need to remove those 15 instructional positions.
Can you tell me again? I didn't get 1 sped teacher at Nottoway.
Right. If you, I'll go back over it, but it's in, it's broken down in your first revised budget. But we had, we were asking for a special ed teacher at Nottoway, 1 at Riverdale. Now, if these are needed to meet the state requirements, then we'll just have to, move people around, So, but we have put them in as additional positions. So it was the 1 sped at Nottoway, Riverdale, and there were 2 speds at the high school, 2 special ed teachers at the high school. And then we had the 1 kindergarten parapro at Nottoway, we had 1 at Riverdale, and 1 at Fresh Start. Yes,
I'm sorry. Do we have a list of what you're going over? You said it was in the, it's not in here though, correct?
No, it's actually, if you have your first budget request that you all approved on March the 10th, all the additions were outlined and highlighted in that budget request. And basically, we took them all out. That's what we did. The only thing that was left in this budget really was the 3% salary increase. And the reason we are leaving that in is because the state is actually giving us funding for that of $832,701. So what, even though we have had to cut the $2.4 million, which was drastic, we felt like we needed to keep that 3% in. And like I said, if our enrollment, comes in higher than what the state has predicted, then those additional funds, about $10,000 per student, we'll be able to reappropriate that funding and, put some of these positions back in.
So in the,
Sure?
in the years that you've been here, how accurate would you say that the state projection has been as far as our enrollment?
Well, I would say that, like, even this year, they were, after they revised their numbers, and in December, that we came in higher than what they predicted. it just seems like the trend over the last several years is that we have lost enrollment. So what they do is they look at that trend. And so what I'm hoping is that, you know, we will make a turn and that we will get some of our students back and all, but, you know, it's hard to say. That's why we have to make these drastic cuts and balance the budget, because we're not gonna know until we get that September 30 enrollment. And then we can certainly start some of these positions off under MOUs and, you know, to see, you know, what our enrollment comes in at. If that's an option, you know, that's up to you all. But in order to balance the budget, we do need to take them out. I'm certainly hoping that their number is low for next year, like drastically low. I mean, I would like to see us get at least another extra 100 kids, which would give us $1 million.
I have a question about this, just that teachers were just automatically taken off, because they were additional, but I think they were additional because numbers were saying that they were, so I'd like to see our numbers of students with disabilities right now and our caseload numbers for these teachers that are currently. Everybody knows my background's in special education, like just for those just to be automatically cut. You know, our students with disabilities is a population that we should be pouring extra into. So I'd like to see the caseloads now, because I think that's why the whole discussion was adding is that our numbers were, I know Nottoway is probably over caseload requirement by the state with just one special education teacher.
Okay. I mean, yes, and like I said, we may have, you know, as far as caseloads, we may have more than we need, like at the middle school or so forth. I think the high school, they just wanted to do it, you know, do it a little different at the high school, but I do understand the Nottoway situation, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that when you look at those numbers, you'll see that we have a little bit of flexibility that, you know, where we might get covered that.
Additional comments?
Quick question. I got assistant superintendent, vacant social worker position in addition to the other one. What was the one more thing I missed?
Mr. Watts, I'm not sure the superintendent heard you.
I'm sorry. I got all the additional positions that were in the budget. We cut those. I got assistant superintendent position, and I got school social worker that was vacant. I think I missed one other position that had to be cut.
That was probably the last thing I mentioned were those 15 instructional staff members. That was the biggie, where if we get those students.
They were not,
Thank you.
They were not new positions that we're asking for. That's 15 instructional positions of what we have now. Correct, that's not.
Are those positions that are currently unfilled?
No, they're filled. It's a name attached to it.
So if we choose to approve this tonight, we're talking about 15 people finding out this week that they don't have jobs for next year?
Not necessarily, because some of our employees are on MOUs, and some of our employees may not be, properly licensed, or they're on a provisional license that's expiring, or again, they may be a long-term sub or something like that. So the situation is different. We have, we have a number of teachers, but not every teacher has the exact same type of certification. So, again, we looked at the budget, and initially we cut about 20 positions based on attrition. But in order for me to get the numbers down to 2.4 billion, which is what the budget cut is, we have to start, you gotta go into personnel at this point. I mean, that's where we are.
I mean, and I understand that. I just want to make sure that it's June the 9th and we're not telling people in the next week, sorry, we don't have the money to pay you, and they think they're coming back or they've been offered a contract. I mean, even provisionally licensed teachers were offered contracts, correct?
No one has been offered a contract yet, and people who will be told this have been talked to all year about getting their license. So we meet with people who are not properly licensed throughout the year.
Right.
To try to find out where they are and what efforts they're making to obtain a provisional license or a standard license. And so as we meet with them, we're letting them know that, you know, if you are not able to fulfill these requirements within this amount of time, then it's possible that we will not be able to employ you. Some of these people have been on our payroll 8, 9 years, 5 years, and still have not done what they need to do to obtain a standard license. So, I mean, again, that's where we are. We are having conversations, they're tough conversations to have, but none of them should be blindsided because we've been meeting with them year after year after year, having the same conversation. The only difference is that this year, it may actually happen because we really have to cut the budget.
Okay. So when will staff be getting contracts?
Once the board approves the appointment list.
Yeah, no, I saw it. Thank you.
Additional comments? Additional questions? But then we do need a motion to approve the proposed school budget for FY26 as presented. I have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Ms. Hobbs. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. So you have 2 noes. Is that it? 2 noes, Ms. King and Dr. Kendall. Everybody else was a yes. And then the proposed school budget for 2026 stands approved as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now down to the proposed emergency communications tower at Nottaway Elementary School. Dr. Shan.
Yes, so Mr. Melby has been in communication with Mr. Brian Thrower, and I guess, is he here, Mr. Thrower? He's not here tonight? Okay. He did indicate that he would have consultants come, however, I see you. However, we did request that he come also, and evidently he wasn't able to come to this meeting. But we do have CTA, the consultants that have worked with Mr. Thrower regarding the radio towers at Nottaway, and we do have a copy of their presentation. So please, the board, they'll speak.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing some time with us this evening. I was asked by Mr. Thrower as well as by the City of Franklin to come share with you what we're doing with the new public safety communication system. My name is Cheryl Jiggets, and I'm with CTA Consultants. We've been working with the city and the county for a few years now, and I'll kind of go over what that trajectory has looked like over the last couple of years and what we've accomplished. But what I want to do is just kind of tell you where we've been, the situation we find ourselves in, and how we can work together to improve that situation. So basically our agenda for the next few minutes is to talk about our public safety radio system, the benefits for the school, the benefits for public safety and all of our citizens in both the county as well as the city of Franklin, because this is a joint public safety radio system, and some radio system design changes that we have found are necessary. And then what is our request of the school board this evening, as well as an estimated timeline and some next steps. So just to give you a little bit of background of what we've been doing, we started in February of 2023 and we did a needs assessment. So we really went through all of the county and talked with all the different agencies. So we did work with Will to really understand what the schools might need from a public safety communication system to help keep your schools and your children safe, as well as all the other public safety and non-public safety agencies in the county. But we also did that with the city of Franklin, because the idea was if we could partner together on this system, we could really have some efficiencies, right? A bigger system that can be shared by both the city and the county will save both jurisdictions a good deal of money. And so our goal here was to improve operability, because both systems are kind of aging.
and we're having issues talking with each other, as well as communicating with the different jurisdictions around us that oftentimes we have to work with when there is a dire emergency. Also improve the operational efficiency. So not only within particular agencies, but between agencies, just here within your county. We feel like that's very, very important. And then the cost savings. So a joint system is going to save us money. And our goal was to give actionable recommendations that things that you can look at and say, what could we do going forward to improve our situation? So the result of that was we were asked by the city and the county to go forward and create an RFP, which is basically a set of technical specifications for our vendor community to tell us how much it would cost to implement a public safety system. We did that in July of 2023. We signed a contract in May of 24, and then we did a kickoff and some sidewalks in the July through September timeframe of 24. And we just fairly recently had our detailed design review. So what that means is we've looked at all the sites that we could possibly use for our radio system, and to again talk with agencies to make sure we have proper counts for our subscribers. And we got what we really believe is a solid design that we can go forth and implement and be very successful during our coverage testing, and hopefully cut over within the next year, year and a half. So part of that process is looking at all of the sites that we chose. And so what we ended up determining with our detailed design is that we need a 5-channel, 800 megahertz system. This system is going to give us 95% coverage countywide. So that really means that throughout 95% of our county, you will have radio communications. We also have redundancy. All of our sites are redundant, so if something were to happen, I know we've had some natural disasters here in this area. If one of the sites were to go dark, we have all of our other sites that can pick up and still continue to give us the coverage and the communications that we need going forward. Now, part of this system is not just the radio, it's also microwave. We have to be able to connect all of our sites together, and you see a nice map. I'm used to looking at a presentation, so you're looking at that now. You'll see a nice map where all of our sites are and how they're connected together, and you will see that we have quite a few sites. Now, they're not all radio sites. We do have 4 of them that are radio sites. All the rest of them are either radio, microwave connectivity to link our sites together, because you have a big county, right? Some of our sites are quite far apart, and we need to have an intermediate microwave site to be able to connect them. But also, we have 2 dispatch centers, one in the county at our sheriff's department, and also one in the city at the police department. So we need to have connectivity into our dispatch centers. So this is an overview of your sites. I do want you, before you turn the next page, to look at that Sedley site that's up in the northern area of your county, because that will become very relevant as we move forward. So then I want to spend a moment just explaining the benefits for the school of this system. You know, not every system that we do the public safety and the non-public safety be included in a joint system. Obviously, that is often because of cost, because these systems are extremely expensive, and a big part of that expense is all of our subscriber equipment, which would be the mobile radios that would go in our buses, or the handheld portables that would go to maybe some of our teachers, certainly our administrative staff. And so oftentimes when a joint system gets planned and there's financial constraints, sometimes we'll just start with public safety and then add non-public safety on later. But this is the system that everyone felt important, that we needed to include everyone. So that means we did include the Southampton County Schools. We included 55 mobiles, 18 portables, and 7 control stations. And these control stations are considered school-safe control stations. So that means you basically, it's almost like your easy button to dispatch. You can push that if something were to happen in one of your facilities, and that would take you directly and immediately to our dispatch centers. This is a county investment of about $400,000 for all of this equipment for the school system. Now, what this is giving you is really going to be providing you enhanced safety for not only your facilities, but for everyone that's working in your facility, as well as for all the children that you care for every day. It's going to give you radio coverage on your school campuses, so all of those will be covered, but also inside your facilities. We consider each one of your schools a critical building. And by that we mean, not only do we test outside, we actually go inside the facility and test as well to ensure that we have the coverage you need inside of your school buildings. Those specialized school-safe radio control stations does give you that immediate contact with dispatch. You're getting at countywide coverage. We heard a little bit from bus drivers. We want them to be very safe and have, the kids safe as they're in their care. So wherever you go in your buses, you're gonna have that 95% coverage. But also we know sometimes you leave your county, right, to go on field trips and things of that nature. So part of our interoperability plans is to see how we can continue that coverage even outside of our county when necessary. So we're trying to be very forward thinking about our coverage. Also access to dispatch, law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So if something were to happen in one of your schools, you'd have that immediate access. You could talk directly to either the sheriff's office or with fire or with your EMS personnel to tell them what's going on so they can come to your school, properly prepared to help in whatever situation you're finding yourself in. The other thing to think about is GPS. We do have GPS in all of our radio units, and the nice thing about that is if something were to happen, whether it's someone who has a portable radio, we could find them really quickly because they will have an emergency button, of course, on their radios, but also just the last time they keyed up, we would know where they were. And this could be particularly important for our buses, right? I was out looking at some sites today and it didn't have great cell coverage in those areas, but GPS, the way the system is going to work, you will be able to find these buses if someone were to break down or if something were to happen on one of the buses. So we feel like that's just another added protection, keeping our children safe. And then also you're going to have your own dedicated communications just for the schools. So you're going to have, maybe maintenance. The bus people can talk with each other or talk with the school that they're going to or coming from. And those will just be private conversations that you will have. We will have dedicated talk groups just for you, but then we will also have talk groups where you can directly communicate with, say, emergency personnel like fire or EMS. And that's a process that we call fleet mapping, and we'll all sit down together. You'll assign people to talk with us about how that's going to look and meet your needs going forward. So that's the benefits we believe it'll help with the schools. But also let's think about just broader than the schools, the public safety and the citizens of our county. So for public safety, they're going to have direct access to administration.
Can we pause for just a second? This week, right? There's a lot of extra information. So as you're talking about some of the enhanced safety, I'm just curious, what do we already have available that our drivers are using to communicate with? I know we have GPS with, I think it's Edulog that tracks our buses and those kinds of things. So I'm just curious, what is, out of all the things that were just listed, what are the additions to the capability that we already have with the things that we've either purchased or subscribed to or already moved forward with?
I'm going to get Mr. Bailey to come forward since he's been working directly with them.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. But I will say a lot of the services are duplicated. I think the fact that they have greater capability, may be beneficial to us.
Sorry. Good evening. I don't know how to go into the middle of a presentation here. So,
I think you can start by just
to
addressing
answer the question, our drivers have push-to-talk phones, but I'm sure it gets head shaky back here because they're hit and miss around town. And the same thing with our GPS tracking, it relies on cell phone service.
If there are duplications, is this potentially a way for us to not have to pay for some of those services and saves? That if there are duplications of services, like, with Edulog and that kind of stuff, is this a way for, or are we looking potentially at this being a way for us to save money by not having to pay for those services?
It depends on who's in control of the, of the, I guess the mainframe, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So like if it's GPS is on our bus, right now we're able to go in and look at the GPS system. Mm-hmm. But if they control the GPS system, I don't know. I don't know whether or not they will allow us to have, full control of that if it's on our buses, or if it's something where we'll have to go and talk to them, talk to ground crew and say we need to log in here, can we do this, can we do that? So I mean, I just really don't know. I think it's something that we need to just look into. Right. But right now, it's more readily accessible for us right now at our desk because we pay for it. But if someone else pays for something, then whether or not they're going to relinquish that to us fully, I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Okay, so then,
The question with that would be, even though you have the GPS capability, what EduLog gives us is the tracking as well. I mean, it gives us all the other pieces of the system.
Right.
Then we can provide access to parents, we can do bus rides, so there's also the software component of
Right.
EduLog that the other is gonna be providing us just the GPS capability, but it's not gonna be the software that we need to track buses, provide evidence for parents to look at it.
Yeah,
It's that.
and I mean, and I know that, you know, nothing is gonna completely take over, but some of the stuff, like you said, that's how we communicate with the parents too, and we wouldn't wanna take that away. I guess it was just to save for, you know, when, as we're asking questions and looking at it, where there are places that we could then potentially.
Have the organization looked at any data pertaining to safety of our children and staff and microwave basketball?
Yes, sir, we have. We get this question actually quite a lot, so we have two areas that we look at. One is our radio frequency, which is RF, and basically this is a low energy type of communications, and it is lower than the FCC has set for the maximum permissible exposure. Matter of fact, it's between hundreds and thousands times lower than the minimum, or excuse me, than the maximum that has been set by the FCC.
With that, do you have any studies that talk about the RF exposure to school-age children, particularly elementary-age children? Because I know that there are some divisions, I know there are 2 in Maryland that won't allow, and that was going to be part of my, I have some additional questions as well with the tower. Is it going to have the RF radiation? If it does, then do you have studies to support that? Because there are some divisions that don't allow it because that exposure to school-age children is questionable, and there are actually some studies that talk about the harm that that can do.
Right.
The tower's actually at the school.
Yes. Well, she's going to get to that further in the presentation, and yeah, so it would be on the site of Nottoway. So I actually have a lot of questions, but I was going to let you get to the end before I jumped into them. Would you rather us ask them along the way?
It's entirely up to you. I would be flexible.
All right, so looking at it, and of course, I'll let you get to the end, because I'm going to let you finish, because then I have some logistic type questions over ownership of the tower.
Sure.
What are the capabilities behind that? Is it going to be designed that it can be multi-carrier? Is there ever any board thinking that they're going to then allow cell carriers to be placed on it? If that is, then they become tenants, and at that point, then you have a leased tower that somebody's making money off of, and then you have implications of real estate taxes changing because now the value of the land that it sits on is changing. So there's lots of components to it that I have some questions, but I'll let you get to the end.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions before? Just at this moment, I see your lights on. Oh, just your microphone, okay.
Yes, we're gonna wait till we get to the end, I guess.
Okay.
I'll go a little bit further.
All right, where was I? Okay, benefits for public safety. But just to kind of speak to what you're talking about, I think realistically it could be a way to save money. I will say that in a lot of our systems where we do have schools on board, there are other applications that could be added to the system that give you the more robust type of tracking that you're looking for, because we know a lot of schools are moving in that direction where parents want to see where the bus is, right? How close they are to getting home, things of that nature. So, we're working with several clients that are integrating that into these systems. So that is something that can be looked at and can be further discussed for you. I think kind of the important thing to think about here is, while you do certainly have systems, and I know it's not too terribly old, when we spoke back in 23, 24, how old was the system, your system, or your radio system that you?
Well, they just
yes. Okay, but you just kind of gotten your arms around it, I think, just a few years earlier. Yeah. So for you, it was kind of fairly new. But the thing to think about, this is that public safety grade of communications, right, versus our cell phone, where sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, I was looking at some sites today, did not have great coverage. Actually could talk, but I couldn't, text or get to the internet or anything of that nature. So it really does give you that more robust public safety type of system. And the other thing to think about is, in a case of emergency with our cell phones, we don't always get priority, right? So if something were to happen and your cellular systems get inundated, then you're not going to have access to the coverage that you would otherwise need. So that's the nice thing about having this private system that you will be part of. You will own that system and you will be in control of it. So that's just something for you to think about as you're processing all of this. So I think we were just moving on to the benefits for our public safety and our citizens. Again, I think we did public safety, I believe. Seamless communications, coordination in critical emergencies, GPS location, but also for our citizens. I think it is important, you know, as we've heard about budgets, none of us ever seem to have enough money in our budgets, right, to do everything that we feel like we need to do, again, for our children or for our citizens. But this is a very cost-effective way to have a county-wide system for both public safety and non-public safety alike. So we can get a lot of our agencies right on the same platform and give you that opportunity to be able to interoperate, and then you will not have to separately fund different aspects of your systems. It will enhance safety at all of our schools. I think that's something that our citizens do expect of us. Enhance the communications with the citizens in emergency. So, you know, God forbid something does happen at one of our schools, you will have that communications. So you will be, you know, superintendent, you'll be well informed and you'll be able to talk with emergency and you can notify the public as you so desire and have that information readily available to you. And again, I keep going back to the GPS. I recognize that you have something, but we just really believe that that GPS and that emergency button, I know back in the old days when I started in this industry, we called it the man down, right? If something were to happen, you could just push a button, you don't have to say anything. That emergency goes out not only to dispatch, but it goes out to everyone in the county. So anyone that is close to wherever that emergency is occurring will come to help. So we feel like that's just an added piece of safety for everyone. So why am I here telling you all about this? You know, a lot of good information, but what does it mean to you? Why am I here asking for your help? Well, that Sedley Tower, remember the one I told you to remember that's up in the northern part? We have run into an issue with negotiating with the tower company. You know, usually these towers are built by cellular companies. They've now sold them mostly to tower companies that manage them. So I believe this company has like 40,000 towers across the United States. We were only able to negotiate them down to $5,500 a month in lease cost. So if I look at that cost per month at generally a 4%, which is what they typically require, year-over-year increase, that'd be over $1.3 million over 15 years. So that is really cost prohibitive. So that's put us at a standstill at that site location. So when that happens, we start to think, what else can we do? Well, we really didn't see any other towers around there because remember, to give you that 95% coverage, I need the 4 towers in very specific locations, right? Very strategic locations around the county so your whole service area, your entire county is covered. So we think, okay, let's build a tower. That's kind of our next step if we can't lease the tower. We feel like we can build about a 250-foot tower for $700,000, which is clearly half what we would have to pay over 15 years. That's if we didn't finance. If we finance, it would be a bit more than that. So now we look at the critical locations. What are some critical locations that are close to that Sedley location? Well, as you can see here, Nottoway Elementary School is one that is not far at all from that tower. It is close enough. Again, remember I told you we had to have a few extra sites because our radio sites were so far away. I needed a microwave site in between them because they couldn't reach each other. Well, that's the other piece of this, right? That microwave, I've got to have a microwave site, so I can't go too much further north, right? Or too much further south because that will disrupt the RF coverage, but also microwave. If I continue to go too much further north, I won't be able to make a shot back down to one of our other towers. So that general area is critical for us. We've identified the elementary school as an ideal location. We've also identified a VDOT site that we're currently in discussions with VDOT. That is a good opportunity for us because when we partner with the state, they do not charge us. They will allow us to put towers on their property and not charge us an ongoing fee. And then we've got several landowners that we're trying to reach out to and talk to in that general area as well. I do suspect, however, if it's someone's property, they will want some form of lease. Obviously, cannot be anywhere near that 5,500 that we're looking at for the Sedley site. So that just gives you a general idea of why we're here talking to you about your specific location, the elementary school. So what would that mean to you? What will we physically be asking you for? Well, we'd be asking you for use of about 100 by 100 foot square area. Our actual fenced compound would be 80 feet by 80 feet. And I know it's a little bit small, but if you look at that picture on the left, there's that little teeny red box down in the bottom left corner. That's generally where we feel like would be a good location, and working with Will and trying to figure out, we want to keep it, you know, further away from the school if possible, and we feel like that's a great location. We would put up a 250 foot self-supporting tower. And that is certainly far enough away from the school. There would be no issues with it interfering with anything that's occurring at the school. But also within that fenced area, we're going to need a shelter, because we have a lot of very expensive microwave and radio equipment that has to be protected. So it would be about 10 feet by 12 feet. We would include a generator, because that's what keeps our site's public safety grade. We would put in a 6-foot chain link fence. Again, this is for security of the site. We want to make sure that no one's accidentally going in there and getting near the tower, or goodness knows, trying to climb a tower inappropriately. So we will keep it locked and secure. We'll also plant a buffer of trees, and we'll do that on the side facing the school as well as the side facing the road. And again, that would just kind of, you know, help make it, you know, a nicer area to look at and not have to see the shelter. And we would need a gravel driveway from the existing asphalt pavement to the proposed compound. So that's what kind of we're asking for on your piece of property in that general location. And then just to kind of keep going forward, our estimated timeline, we would, because we do have what we call a foliage window deadline. What that means to us is, for us to be able to test a public safety system, we have to test in full foliage. So that means about mid-April to end of September. And the reason that is because that's for us worst case, right? Leaves can interfere with coverage, but our vendors designed these systems to be able to pass the coverage criteria in full foliage. So we don't want to start testing in October, November, December when all the leaves are off the trees, because that would give you an idealized, right, coverage test scenario. So we don't want to do that. So if we're going to meet that window next year, we've got to move forward with a decision on the site. So we just wanted to give you a timeline in all fairness, so that you know the urgency of this for us. We do need a decision from the school board, hopefully by July 1st, and an agreement executed by end of August. We felt that gives us a couple of months, right, to really sit down and talk through all these details that you're already thinking about, and, you know, just kind of figure out how this would work between you and the county. We would need to get our permitting done in the 3rd quarter of this year. That would allow civil work to begin. That means actually constructing the tower itself and the site, and that will go into about the 1st quarter of next year. Our mobile installs will be probably that 3rd, 4th quarter of next year, and system testing being in that 3rd quarter of next year. And there'll be some other testing that might go beyond that, but our radio coverage has to be done by 3rd quarter. So our next steps is to complete a survey and necessary path walks. We've already looked at the site. We went out with Will just to look to see if it was even viable, right? If we thought that there was even any area for us. We do believe there is. Then we have to develop construction drawings, draft up an agreement, develop more detailed implementation schedule, right? We did that DDR, but that's going to change, right, by necessity with a new site or a revised site. Then we have to get permits, and then we move forward. And our hope is that we can work together to, you know, help protect not only the children of the county, but also our public safety and all our citizens. So now, lots of questions, I'm sure.
Questions, Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. First comment is really not a question, but a comment, and that's, it's a little presumptuous to get approval by July 1. I mean, this is our last meeting before July 1, and this is the first time we're looking at this information, and this isn't the kind of decision I'm comfortable making. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but you know, in one meeting's time, with just a little bit of time to review this. I want to also look at the site at Nottoway. In the slides, I noticed that there was an intent to install a new backup power generator large enough to power elementary school and shelter using an existing fuel tank located at the school. Can you give me some details about exactly what that means?
We had a change in plan. So my apologies. That was the plan we had previously when we were going to have the site back.
It was a discussion to have it as a benefit for the school to kind of put in a supercharged generator. But the distance to go from the tower to the school it wouldn't maintain another charge going back to the school. So it's not, that day of the field week.
Right. So we've continued to have discussions after we needed to present this to you, so things continue to evolve anytime we're looking at a site. So there will just be a generator that will service the site itself.
That's what I got for now.
Ms. Bud, you have this?
Sure. Okay, so looking at it, it looks like you all had talked with tower companies originally, looking at trying to have a tower company build it. So it sounds like now you feel like it'll be more cost effective for the county to build it. There won't be a tower company involved, or there will be?
Okay, so let me clarify that. We spoke with an existing tower company, a company who owns a tower on I-4 Road. Okay, the Sedley, we call it the Sedley site. Their acronym is ATC. They own that tower. We talk with them because generally that is our least impactful way of moving forward a system quickly, right? Get on towers that are already built. And normally, honestly, we're able to negotiate what we believe is fair compensation, which we have done so at another commercial site that's already part of this system. Unfortunately, here we were not able to do so. There are no other commercial sites in the area. We do know Verizon is building one a little further north. They get a little too far for what we need, but also the tower's not going to be tall enough for what we need. So, absent any other existing towers, we feel like building our own tower is going to be the next best thing, and it will be about half the cost of renting space on the tower that's existing. Now, we have a contractor currently, JVC Kenwood, and they will do, their subcontractors will actually build out the site and build the tower for us. So we will have tower companies involved.
Okay, and so then we'll have a contractor that will build the tower. Mm-hmm. At that point, then who owns the tower and who maintains the tower? Because as things happen with the tower, who's going to be certified and equipped and ready to go out and work on the tower if we don't have a tower company involved?
Right. So certainly I could not and should not presume to know what type of agreement you would work out with the county, but I can tell you how we would normally see it occur in a standard project. Typically what would happen is the county and the city have entered into this agreement. They jointly own this big county-wide system. Typically the sites that are within the city are kind of part of the city's responsibilities. The sites in the county are the county's responsibility. We would expect that the county would put in the money to build this tower. It would become their obligation to maintain that tower, and all the equipment on it would then become part of our big maintenance contract. So we already have a maintenance contract that will take effect 1 year after our warranty period is done. We have a 1 year warranty after we finish our system. After that, we have a maintenance contract, so if anything happens to any of our equipment, things of that nature, we have professionals that are part of JVC Kenwood that would come out and maintain anything that has to do with our radio system. So that would just be kind of folded into the entirety of the radio system.
So then that maintenance contract would cover issues with equipment and things of that nature?
It does.
So at 2 o'clock in the morning, though, when something's wrong with the tower and it's not just a maintenance issue, do we have somebody within the county that's going to be capable to work on that? And I guess I'm asking this question because typically I think that's why you usually have tower companies involved. And for the county to own the tower, or for the county and the city together to own the tower, I just want to make sure, right, is it truly going to be able to be maintained, and do we have the manpower and the know-how to do that?
Well, typically for a tower, and I do have a senior engineer who's a project engineer, he can correct me if I run foul here, but typically it's going to be a 250-foot tower, so we'll either have to paint it or have lights. So tower-wise, the only thing that could really cause a problem is the lights, right? Could go off. Your tower's going to stand. We do look at it year over year, right? Preventative maintenance, and we can have it inspected and things of that nature, but everything that goes on the tower itself is part of the radio system. So every antenna, every transmission line, all of that is part of the radio system.
So then, if all of a sudden the tower doesn't have power to it and something's not working with the generator, who's fixing that? Because it's not an equipment issue.
That is part, that'll either be part of our contract with JVC Kenwood, or if the county finds that they could do it less costly with a local contractor. A lot of times the city or the county, they have other generators throughout, you know, their jurisdiction. They can add this generator to it and it would be part of that contract. We will look at it during the warranty period to see which is most cost effective. But there is an option in our contract that the generators can be maintained by the same organization that's maintaining everything that was on the site.
Ms. Bond, you had some information about effect on children.
Yeah, and I'll get back to that in a second. So then, with that scenario, then with the site that's there, then the county would become the owner of the tower. Would there be a lease involved, and would they be leasing that piece of land, or is this gonna be just an agreement that we're gonna allow them to put that there?
Again, I should not presume to know or to speculate on exactly what kind of agreement you would come to with the county. I suspect our hope would be you would allow us to put this tower up. You would gain the benefit of using this system going forward, and it would be, you know, a collaborative opportunity for us to move forward, because we do have to invest $700,000 plus. We don't have an exact number. We're thinking now might be upwards of $800,000 to build this tower.
And is there any thought of adding carriers to that tower in the future if there's a wireless carrier that wanted to go on the tower? Because then that does become a revenue stream at that point, because they're going to be paying to be on the tower.
Absolutely. And you know, I would encourage you, that's something that you would want to put in to decide between the two of you, what you want to do, and put that in your initial agreement. I will tell you, by virtue of the contract we have with JVC Kenwood, anytime you build a new tower as part of our systems, you are required to at least build it strong enough to hold all of our equipment and one other carrier. So the opportunity is there. It's certainly not a requirement, it's not something we're expecting, but that opportunity does exist for you.
You mentioned another site that you're looking at with VDOT. Is that in case that we vote no on this?
Yes, ma'am. I've learned over my many years of experience to, you know, to have a broad net to figure out, because the other piece of that too is we still have engineering we have to do, right, on each of these sites to determine exactly how tall of a tower we need, you know, find out what the soil is like on each of the pieces of property to make sure it can actually hold a tower of this size.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Based on the red square that you have on the
I'm not sure.
Sorry. Based on the red square that you have on the map, could it not be so close to the school, meaning half a mile away or something like that?
How big is your property?
Way that we don't own it anymore, to be on the school site. And
You have
the
to have
other
it on the
piece,
school site.
That's at the edge of, that's near the property line of the school property.
and if you go any further, like if you're trying to clear woods areas, then that's gonna become more problematic for a tower as well, because you're gonna want the visibility and decrease in the foliage if you have an open area.
That tree line there is close to the
Pretty
property
close to the.
Back to the question about the radiation or whatever you're talking about.
So that's probably one of the most important questions is, do you have studies that show that there's no risk to children, especially again, the school-age children? I know it delays the timeline, and trust me, I'm all about putting in radio systems for public safety, and I get that we are a large county and that we need to take care of this. We're behind getting this done. It should have been done years ago, and for our first responders, for everybody, wonderful idea, but we do have to look at, you know, is there indeed a risk to it, and is it okay to pump the brakes and have it be delayed a little bit and have it at a VDOT site if it means that we're not putting children at risk for some radio frequency radiation that we don't truly understand yet or know what the risk is for them being there long term. You know, they're gonna be at that school site for 6 years.
Right, certainly there's always that concern, and we've been hearing that, I guess, for the 35 plus years that I've been in this industry. And I believe when we really get down to the scientific data, we find that there really is not an exposure. And the reason I say that is because, again, the Federal Communications Commission, the ones that have all the scientists, the ones that do these studies, you know, they're the ones that determine the maximum permissible exposure, or MPE. Everything has to have an acronym, of course. And they have a guideline, an entire guideline book, which is OET 65. So that's, you know, evaluating compliance with the FCC guidelines and all of that. And the interesting thing is that the FCC does not require antennas mounted 10 meters above the ground, 10 meters about 30 feet. So after about 30 feet, they really don't even require you to measure, because the higher you go, those radio waves dissipate. And the reason you can cover your entire county with only 4 sites is because of that dissipation, right? Those radio waves are going out and they're of course getting weaker, which is why we can't do it with 1 site. We need to have more than 1 site, but all of that works together from a scientific perspective to really, in our minds, assure us that this, radio frequency, this radiation is not coming straight down and affecting people around the tower. Now, I will say that we do put signage up on the gate, and that's primarily for the people who go inside the gate and are climbing the tower. Kind of back in the older days when we had AM and FM towers, they were putting out thousands of watts of power, and that's why they really were so dangerous. But what we're doing is nothing like that. And so, again, as I was mentioning, if we look at our RF energy reaching the ground, we are currently about hundreds of thousands times lower than the maximum permitted emissions. So we feel confident that our radio is not going to cause any harm to anyone on the ground, not even right at the site, much less as it moves forward into where your children might be playing or coming in and out of school. We also have the microwave, of course, our microwave dishes. But the interesting thing about those, they're a little bit higher power. However, they're basically a beam, right? Their radiation does not even come to the ground. It's an invisible beam. And the reason that it's so critical that we put them in exactly the right spot is because we have to align 2 dishes from one side all the way to another site. And the other great thing about this particular location is both of these micro antennas are pointing away from the school. So we try to, again, be very mindful. That's why we went out with Will to look at the property and say, can it be here? Can it be over there? Should it be over here? We do take into account all of those different aspects to make sure that we are easing, hopefully, your mind about any concern and that we're taking the safety of the children and actually anyone, honestly, on that site into consideration. And I was told something recently that I'm not sure might be good news for you, but it's a little troubling to me. I was told that there is more radiation in the vehicle I drive every day than there will be from around any tower site, just because we put our dishes and our antennas up 210, 220 feet up in the air. So that's troubling for me personally. But I think it does speak to the fact that we're trying to be very mindful of not bringing radiation down.
Have you put a tower on another school site? Have you ever do you have an example of a school site?
I mean, certainly over my career, we've probably done this about a half dozen times. We did it where have we done it? Did it in Fauquier, I believe. We've done it, where else have we done it? Lynchburg.
School in York.
Yeah, York.
In
County is at a high school. Yes, York County is at a high school there. I have to go back to the recesses of my mind. Because I've done so many projects in so many different sites, but yes, we have over time put in sites at schools.
There was a site in Fauquier County.
Yeah, Fauquier County, I remember that one. That was a hard fought one. But the interesting thing, that was done, gosh, 20 years ago, and we didn't, and this exact issue came up, but we didn't have the studies now that, back then that we had now that were really, the FCC was really in earnest measuring this and trying to understand what exposure, not only because, first it starts with what exposure the people working at the tower. We want to be careful, right? We don't want to send our tower climbers up into danger. And I know sometimes when we're co-located on a radio tower, we actually have to have them shut down their dishes because they're so strong. So we're very mindful of that, but then we also do start to look around.
Other comments or questions from other board members?
I have one more question. Have you had any parental opposition?
The only one I can remember was in Fauquier, 2 decades ago. It took us a bit, but we were able to do what we needed to do by really doing the hard work. And I think we're probably a little on the cutting edge of doing some measurements and some EME exposure surveys and things of that nature, some measurements. And then I think once the FCC started to see things like that, they felt like they needed to get involved, and they really do a good job of putting out the guidelines and then making the requirements for measurements if they believe it's required. And we won't get our licenses if we don't meet their regulations.
I do have a question. It says that the contract was signed in May of 2024, and who's involved in the contract at this point? Like, is that the city, the county, and then you all as the consultants, or who was the contract that was signed?
Well, the actual fiscal agent is the city of Franklin, but they have an MOU between the city and the county. So they are the joint owners of the system. They signed that contract with JVC Kenwood. We are the consultant that is also under a separate contract with the city and the county to oversee the implementation and ensure that you get exactly what you signed in your contract.
Okay, so they have signed a contract with JVC, that's what
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am.
So that has been signed, and is there a timeline within that contract that needs to be met? Because going back to what Mr. Rogers says, it's really kind of a quick turnaround for us to look at this tonight and think that they want to answer by July 1st, especially if some of this is going to involve some conversations with them to understand how we can work together to get it done.
Sure. And you know, obviously, I'm a project manager, and my responsibility is for a project to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so towards that goal, I start with the end in mind, and my goal is for people to be on the system by the end of the next calendar year, so 2026. So when I make that decision, I work my way backwards. Do we have a little bit of play in these dates? Yes, but we don't have months. I just want to be clear about that. If this goes on for months and months, I feel like we really have to make other decisions because we will miss that foliage window, and if we don't have our testing done by September of 26, we will not get to test again until April of 27.
And so with that, the questions that we have about whether or not they'll expand it to cell use as well, and whether or not, you know, there'll be lease agreements, who will answer those questions for us so that we can evaluate it? If they won't answer back, who's going to provide that information?
Well, I think I would recommend, we can certainly, you know, put a meeting together. I think certainly whomever from your organization would be the appropriate person to be part of that conversation. Certainly, Mr. Thrower, the county administrator, and our city manager. And we do have basically a primary point of contact for the contract itself, which is Chief Arnie Francis. They're with the city, sort of a city and a county person. So I would say, let's get a meeting together, just talk about it, right? See what kind of things you're looking for, and see if that's something that the city and the county believe it is in everyone's best interest to consider.
Any comments? We have a motion by Mr. Scott that we table this motion, a second by Ms. Lane, that we table any decision on this matter. Any discussion on the motion?
It might be a good idea to consider amending to request also that the county directly engage in conversation with us about their intent and plans around ownership and MOU before we can make any kind of decision around this. So also, just to follow up to the county that says, we need you to come and engage with us.
So we have the motion by Mr. Scott and the second by Ms. Lane. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we will not take any action on this matter tonight.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Could I ask a couple quick questions, Dr. Goodman, before we got another second?
I do.
Yeah. What's the life expectancy of the tower and the equipment and all of the stuff that would be going on the site?
So it's two separate questions. The tower itself, we've seen towers 50 years old or older, probably 30 years is usually
30 to 35 years.
Your system itself, we generally challenge those to go from 15 to 20 years. We'll use 15 years for financing purposes, but they can last longer than that. And a lot of that has to do more with technology necessarily, and that's for your infrastructure. Obviously, your portables would need to be replaced probably about halfway through that 15-year cycle.
That's depending on the use and condition and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well,
We've seen portables last 20 years.
Yeah.
But they're big.
Yes, and we've seen some that last too.
I haven't had a cell phone last me longer than 3 years lately. So
well, these are really sturdy, but of course you can't run over them with your vehicle, you know.
These are designed to be used by fire departments, law enforcement officers, and they're not particularly gentle on foot.
So what happens at the end of that lifespan? So the tower and equipment and anything else, how does that normally get managed? Who's responsible? If I've got a tower after 30 years that's now no longer in use, does it stay standing on my school property?
Oh, well, here's the thing, typically, much as the county and city find themselves in the situation now, these systems do last generally much longer than the 15-year life cycle or maintenance cycle that we have the contract for. We do encourage you to think about replacement, right, in that 15 to 20-year time frame. The equipment obviously doesn't stop working. If you treat it well, it will continue to work, but yes, that tower should stay. I mean, I was saying definitely, because it's a tower that can continue to be used. And if you think about it, even if you upgrade your system, more likely than not, you're going to use the same tower size, right? You might just move to a newer technology, or you might replace specific components in your system to help it go another 5 years or another 10 years, upgrade the technology. They make them out with something a little bit different, you know, between now and 15 years. But typically these towers, which is why, you know, the tower companies that we have a little bit of trouble negotiating with these days, they know it's a commodity that's going to be there virtually indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you probably get the gist of the question. If I let somebody come onto my property and stick something on it, and I have to look at it for the rest of my life, who takes care of it if it's not used? And I'm good with that answer. One more for you, and that is, if, say, the VDOT site was selected, the school system's benefits are still grandfathered into the rest of the agreement, that no matter what site is chosen, the ability for us to utilize the system is contained no matter what.
That is my current understanding, yes.
All right.
You're a part of the contract.
Thank you.
And part of that end of life question would be one of those things too that would need to be worked out in an agreement, at least, because if for some reason the tower was ever removed or taken down, then that becomes the question of who actually does the removal. And then there's also components within the ground. It's not just the tower itself, but if the tower ends up having, you know, have 20-foot steel beams within the ground to support it, then that becomes part of that question too, is who's responsible for that.
Right, and all of those are typically in a memorandum of understanding, you know, between partner entities, so that's something that we can, you know, assist making sure all of those bases are covered.
And I think the big decision for us, the big conversation is going to be, how is the school system benefiting from this? Because we have not talked yet about how the school system will benefit. We know that the county needs the system, but how does the school system benefit from having it on school property? And that can be part of the conversation that we have when we talk with the county. But I can tell you, we will not have an answer by July 1, because we don't meet again until the second Monday in July. So
understood.
And hopefully before that time, we can arrange to have the county meet with us. We'll have a special meeting, have the county come in and explain to us the benefits to the school system, because part of our concern will be who has access to the information. Even though you're saying we can use this and we can use it for our good, but who owns it and who has access to our information? Because there would be some student information that we would not want others to have access to. There might be some information there. So we've got a lot to talk about, and we'll invite the county to talk to them.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have tabled this matter. We'll take no action on it. So the next action item is the renewal of the insurance carrier recommendation. Dr. Shannon?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Melton Stanford.
Thank you, Dr. Goodwin, Board, Dr. Shannon. You have for your approval tonight a renewal with Versa. It is a 6% increase, yes ma'am. We were just under 6% as an increase last year as well. And we still are either at the same level or below what other localities or members within the Commonwealth are seeing in their insurance premium increases this year. They did attribute it to, there was a 3% increase in our real estate valuation that drove up part of that cost. And again, this is our third year with Versa, and so we will be exploring probably going out to bid again in November, and I've already spoken with our insurance agent about that, starting to test those waters.
Any questions for Mr. Melville, the superintendent, concerning the insurance policy?
Do you need us to take action and vote?
Yes, please.
I'll move that we proceed with the Versa insurance policy for the next year.
have a motion by Mr. Rogers. Second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the surplus list. Dr. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am. So you have a list of, buses and personal or private vehicles that we run throughout the county that their repairs or mileage to bring them up to speed exceeds their valuation. So, but we can surplus them and have an auction in July.
A motion by Mr.
Second.
Smith, a second by Ms. Lane, that we approve the surplus list as presented. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now down to federal programs for FY 25-26. Dr. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lorraine Green will come to the podium and discuss the various titles.
Federal programs for the FY 25-26 school year. Title I Part A with Title IV transferred into Title I Part A, and enlargement of that. Title I Part A funds are $665,074.87. Title IV Part A that will be transferred into Title I, $46,063.56. This will fund one reading specialist for Capron Elementary School, and one part-time reading specialist will be funded by the VLA, the state VDOE. So there will be 1.5 reading specialists for Capron Elementary School. Meharron Elementary School, one reading specialist from the federal programs. The second reading specialist will be funded federal programs with the transferability from Title IV. Nottoway Elementary will have one reading specialist and one reading resource parapro funded by the SSA or Title I funds. Riverdale Elementary School will have two reading specialists funded by the SSA or Title I funds, and a third will be funded by the VLA state reading program, Virginia Literacy Act. And I left off the presentation that you all have on your laptops. There's also funded a part-time reading math resource teacher for RES and MES, depending on how the data goes and what the testing SOLs reveal to be the greatest need. But it's already in the application, it's just wasn't on your presentation. Additional resources for the Title I program, you have that in your packets. Title II, Part A, $97,618.57 is going to provide one reading specialist for Southampton Middle School. A second reading specialist for Southampton Middle School is funded by the VLA. Also, with the Title II funding, we will have materials and supplies to support teachers. The praxis test reimbursements and practice test for the praxis are in this application. Reimbursements for classes necessary for the teachers to become properly licensed and endorsed, and materials and supplies for the new teachers. Title III, Part A, $3,904.01. Materials and training for events for the English learner specialist. And I found this interesting. I got Elizabeth to tell me how it's trending. We have gone from having 9 EL students 2 years ago to having 33 now. This information for the Department of Criminal Justice just came in last week, expanding safe places. This is a renewal for a school security officer for Nottoway. A new grant, though, we got school safety personnel or programming that's countywide. And then this is the information on that. Those two total $133,563. And again, that's through the Department of Criminal Justice. Summer literacy program. I brought some samples of what our students are getting for the summer. The younger students, grades K through 2, will be getting packets like this. They include 10 books, a letter to the parents, and then also some activities for the students to complete during the summer. And then for grades 3 through 5, they get this really nice kit right here. And anybody that would like to come over or look at these between when you transition, you're quite welcome. And then I had to put some pictures from Bounce into Kindergarten, which we just had last week. This was at Riverdale. And this shows you the students and the parents opening the early literacy kits that they get to transfer information from pre-K to kindergarten. These are some of the activities. We had face painting, we had dancing, we had popcorn, and of course we had bouncy houses. And then this is a closer look at those early literacy kits that they got to transition from pre-K to kindergarten. Any questions?
Any questions?
A question for you about the Title II. You said something about the tuition reimbursement. Is that?
Yes, for teachers, like Dr. Shannon was talking earlier about students that are, teachers that are not properly licensed and endorsed. This will reimburse the teachers if they pass the class or class or classes that they need to become properly licensed and endorsed. And also, like I said, it will also, if they just need the praxis, it will buy practice tests for the praxis for them, and it will also pay for the praxis if they pass it when they take it.
Okay. So we don't do any kind of tuition reimbursement like for teachers that are being that are renewing their licenses and like take a class?
Yes, whatever they need to maintain properly licensed and endorsed. Yeah.
Okay. And we're reimbursing the full cost of the class for them? Or
right now, we've got enough money or enough funding in the federal programs to reimburse the full price of the class.
Awesome.
Right now.
And Southampton is an I Teach division, correct?
A what?
I Teach.
I'm not familiar with that.
Have we looked at all into covering the cost of I Teach?
I think Kelly just sent me a memo on that yesterday.
So the board decided last year not to cover the cost of IT. So again, that's up to the board.
Okay.
That's great. The physicians, all the reading specialists that you mentioned on your slide, are they gonna be moved from teacher to teacher, or are you gonna put it on the website?
I'm sorry, my ears are 70 years old. I didn't understand what you said.
All the reading positions that you had, the reading specialists, are you gonna get those positions from inside, or you're gonna put them out on the website?
They just renew their contracts. Right now, we all of our reading specialists are returning.
So these are not new positions?
Yes, they're not new positions.
Any additional questions?
Yeah. Never mind. The grant, what, I know you have to write that you have to put in last year's goal and then how you did on meeting that goal.
Yes.
That wasn't in the.
That's because we have not finished getting all of our SOL information in yet, but that will be in the, you all just got pretty much the budget and the plan. That will be in the larger grant that is due July 1st, and we're waiting for all of the data to come in for that. We don't have all the SOL scores yet.
One other Title II question. For the praxis, the people that need practice with praxis, have we looked into the passage? Is it Virginia Passage? Something. It's a program, that, according to the state, has incredible results. It's called Passage Prep, maybe?
I know that we've purchased the Praxis practice test.
Okay.
Additional questions?
Yeah, it's called Passage Prep.
Thank you, and may the force be with you.
And also,
We do need, this is an action item.
I move that we, approve the federal program for FY25.
I have a motion by Ms. Lane, a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion on the motion?
I have a discussion. I know that we don't have the data on the goals from the previous application, but what are the new goals? They weren't presented either. Each of the applications would have new goals attached to it as well.
Ms. Whitehead, Ms. Lorraine. I'm sorry, repeat the question. She wants to know what are the goals?
What are the goals attached, the new goals attached to each grant?
The goals are that I believe it's like 85% of the students will pass their reading SOLs and also their math SOLs. And then also the parents will attend parent events that will help them with their child and working at home and on their SOLs.
We did have a motion and a second, so we're ready to vote. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No, opposed.
Is that two opposed, Ms. King and Ms. Kendall?
Dr. Kendall.
Dr. Kendall, voted no, but the motion passes. We're now down to the Children's Center, the lease agreement for the Children's Center. Dr. Shannon?
Yes, ma'am. Currently, the Southampton County School Board is in an agreement with the Children's Center, and the Children's Center is requesting that that agreement be renewed. And the Southampton County School Board serves as the landlord. The Children's Center serves as the tenant. The Children's Center currently pays $1 to lease the building. And of course, the guidelines for that lease are included in your board packet. And there are no changes to the existing guidelines or anything like that. And it essentially boils down to the fact that if there are any repairs or any taxes, any utilities, all of those costs will be incurred by the Children's Center. Yeah, and then they don't have the authority to lease the building. And again, the building must be utilized for Head Start right now. And all of that is included in the lease.
I make a motion that we approve the lease agreement to carry forward.
I have a motion by Ms. Bond, a second by Mr. Rogers. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're down now to the out-of-state field trip request. Dr. Shannon?
Yes, so Coach Travis Parker is requesting permission to take 20 athletes or student athletes to Chowan University for a football exposition. And the date of that event is June 20th from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. The cost is $300 and transportation is $18.75. And we're just requesting permission that the coach is allowed to transport those students to the event.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Bond, a second by Ms. Lane to approve the out-of-state field trip request for the Southampton High School football camp. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have a use of facilities request, Dr. Shannon.
Sure. We also have a use of facilities request from Camp 25, and that's Mr. Charles Cooper and Eric Benton, and they are requesting to utilize the football field at Riverdale Elementary School for football football practice from 5:30 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Their insurance is attached, and they are a nonprofit organization. And the list of the dates that they'd like to utilize the facility is also attached. And it appears that those dates are from July the 22nd until about October 30th. And it's Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 5:30 until 8:30.
A motion by Mr. Smith, is that a second by Mr. Scott? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. At our meeting last month, we agreed that we would have a meeting on, a special meeting next Monday, which is the 16th, to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent. So we did need a motion to have Ms. Artist post the necessary announcements of that meeting. We have a motion by Ms. Lane, a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion on the motion?
We need 6 or 7. I don't know if we have time on the sheet. I just wanted to start time.
What time do you prefer?
Whatever you tell me.
6.
Will 6 work for everybody? Okay. The whole meeting or the time? Okay. Will 6 work for everybody else? So next Monday at 6 o'clock. So we had a motion and a second. Now we know the date, the time, and it'll be in the library. Any discussion on the motion? So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And on that same note, you should need a hard copy of the evaluation form. Please see Ms. Artist. And if you haven't turned in your superintendent evaluation, please get it to Ms. Artist by Wednesday, so that I can do the calculations and we'll be ready for our meeting on Monday. Thank you. Down now. How do you prefer to get it, Ms. Artist? We're now down to informational items. Dr. Sharon, we're down to instructional report.
All right, we have Ms. Kelly Gillette, who is actually back with us, and she will give the instructional report.
Thank you, Dr. Shannon. Dr. Goodwin and board members and everyone present, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. For tonight's instructional report, we're going to look at updates for the Virginia Literacy Act, summer school updates, our June Code to the Future cycle, and dates to remember. The Virginia Literacy Act, our June Division Literacy Plan, is in progress. It's almost complete, and we are on target to submit on or before the due date of the 30th. A frequently asked questions for the 4 through 8 VALS assessment. It's a screener that the state has put forward. We still have a lot of information on it, so they sent out a information sheet and also some training for those teachers that will be looking at administering this assessment. Students who scored basic or below basic range, they'll be required to take the screener if they didn't pass that SOL, the reading SOL. They need to receive a minimum intervention and assessment. And once they have that, they'll have an individual plan. Everyone must have an individual plan that did not pass the SOL. As I stated before, the 4 through 8 reading specialists and teachers will be given an opportunity to complete the VALS training, the modules, during the August professional development that we have. The middle school has chosen to use Lexia Power Up as their intervention and supplemental program. The program addresses all components, including phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. The Southampton County leadership team for the BLA, we're planning to host a kickoff after the 6 through 8 open house in August. We did that last year with the elementary, and it was very successful. We had lots of help, and we look forward to doing that again this year with the upper grades. Our summer school, I know we presented the plan last month, but we wanted to let you know that all grade levels will take a diagnostic test before and after to see progress during the summer school using IXL. Summer school supplies have been ordered. We'll have to order some more once the teachers start and have specific things that they need for the classroom. We also have materials that we saved from last year for the elementary, stuff that we could use again, like whiteboards and scissors. Kindergarten through 2, they'll be using once again the SEW ring for summer school. It's the Science of Reading program, which we have through Really Good Stuff, and they'll also be using Exact Path for math. 3 through 8, we'll be using Lexia intervention. 3, 4, and 5, we'll use the Core 5, and the middle school will use Power Up. And the middle school and high school will also use Edgenuity. Our June coding cycle is concluded. It used Scratch Junior for grades K through 1 and Scratch for grade 2. The June showcase was in person at the elementary schools this week. Riverdale was today. 11th will be Maharon and Capron, and on the 12th, Nottoway. And I know I don't have pictures of the June coding cycle. They will be online for you to see for the students. We want to thank Code to the Future for their partnership and supporting us throughout the school year. And then some dates to remember, of course, our high school graduation this Saturday, the 14th, here at SHS at 10 o'clock. And then this year we also have the 8th grade celebration, which will be awards and promotion. That will be at 5 o'clock on June 12th. Also on June 12th, we'll have 5th grade celebration for Capron at 10, Maharon at 9:30, and Riverdale at Ag Center at 11:30. Nottoway will have their 5th grade celebration at 9:30 on the 11th. And then we roll into the kindergarten, where we see that the top 2 schools, Capron and Maharon, will have theirs June 11th at 9:30, and then Nottoway and Riverdale will have theirs June 12th at 9:30 each. Thank you. Any questions tonight?
Comment? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the maintenance and transportation report, Dr. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Melvin will come forward and give that report.
All right, good evening again. This has got to be the craziest week I think I've ever had. And I think that Saturday, I'm not ready, just to put it simply. But going into the summertime here, we are going to do the summer meals, the feeding and breakfast and lunch, where it's open for any Southampton County child, 18 years of age and younger. They can come into any one of our 3 summer school sites, come in and get a free meal. We are putting this out as a media release, and we'll put it on Facebook for mine to share out so that everybody has the information for the times and where to get their meals. 2 new buses arrived last week. We still have 1 more to come. Edgelog and their partner of the GPS install have kind of spun their wheels, but they are scheduled to show up after school's out next week. The summer EBT program. Now, this is a little bit different. It's called Summer Bucks. In the past, because we were a CEP school division, everybody qualified. This year, it is the students that are directly certified through Department of Social Services. They are automatically qualifying for the summer EBT payment. If there are other families that feel they would qualify, there is an online application piece that they can do, and we will be putting that out on social media and through all of our venues as well. And again, you guys approved the surplus list tonight, so we'll be doing that auction coming up in July. Oh, and let me step quick back. The EBT will start paying out, I believe it's July 18th. where it will start to roll out directly to EBT cards. And I believe, off the top of my head, $120 per student that qualifies. All right, we are working on finishing setting up for graduation. The maintenance crew, the folks here at the high school have been working hard to get that straight. One addition that you'll see once you guys get here on Saturday, we are going to have an ADA compliant ramp across the front of the stage area to accommodate for 2 of our students that need access to the stage. And again, Dad is not okay. This is my first one. So. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Graduation question.
That's the next item.
Perfect, okay.
High school graduation. Shan, high school graduation is next.
The high school graduation occurs Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. in the gymnasium. They do have that we have 160 graduates, and 63 of those graduates are undergraduates. And we should also have in your packet the number of students who have received degrees from the community.
Was that your question?
No, my question was, how am I gonna get in? I don't have a ticket yet.
You're supposed to get them tonight.
Okay.
So we got the tickets. So Mr. Rock, we got tickets?
Yes, ma'am. We gave them to Ms. Hutchinson to give to you guys. You all should have tickets.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And we have special pocket again.
Say again.
We have special pocket again.
Parking, Mr. Melvin?
Okay.
Mr. Melvin can show you.
I will. Will we have parking for board members Saturday? Reserved parking for board members?
Yes.
We will just make something and have.
So their suggestion is lame. There will be reserved parking for board members. Anything else to say about graduation?
That's it, just come if you're able to come.
Okay. So we're down to student enrollment and student teacher attendance.
We currently, and I say currently, but that's as of May's data, have 2,239 students. We projected to have 2,209 students, and inclusive of our preschool and special education students, we have 2,382 students. In looking at the student attendance report, Capron is the winner with 96.68%. And in looking at the teacher attendance report, we have Maharan, who is the winner, and I want to add that Maharan has been the winner since March for teacher attendance. They won March, they won in May, and they won in June.
Fantastic. Insurance premium adjustment, Dr. Shannon.
So, there was some discussion, and I'll say concerns among our staff regarding the proposed increase in the insurance premium because, insurance has gone up basically everywhere in all facets. And when that happened, initially the cost was going to be incurred by our staff. But our staff reached out to our school board, as well as our administrators, and the budget committee met. They considered the input of the staff and the needs of our community, and the budget committee recommended that those costs be absorbed this year and that there be no increase to our staff for insurance. And that's really a significant savings to many of our families because some of those increases were as much as $700 a month. So anyway, that's what we are proposing and that's what we're asking our board. Ms. Bunch?
And just as an insight into that, we didn't have the time that we would have needed this year to look at putting in some type of a high deductible plan because that's the alternative as you start to look at putting in some high deductible plans that people can pay into HRAs and things like that. We weren't going to be able to get that in place for this year. So doing this is we're absorbing it because we don't have the time to do that, but then that gives us the opportunity to make sure that that's in place for next year. And I don't want anybody to think that we passed on costs to people that, you know, we typically don't normally do. That truly was the amount of increase that came from that plan. That was, and those costs are usually, the increase in that, we absorb some, but then there's a portion that goes to the employee. But because that plan had such high increases this year, it really was going to be, you know, financially detrimental to some of those staff members. So that's why we opted to do that. I'm glad that it worked out. It gives us time to look at it for next year.
Thank you. You do have the calendars from the various schools in your documents tonight. Please, you know, look at those and attend as many activities as your schedules will allow. So now, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 and 2 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, the board, upon a motion and a second, will go into closed session to discuss personnel appointments, resignations, retirements, intra-district transfers, out-of-state student admissions, non-resident, the discipline committee report, summer school staff, a response to request for bus route information, and a legal matter. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will return to this area to take any needed action on matters discussed during the closed session. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Lane, a second by Mr. Scott, that the board will now move to the faculty area to go into closed session. We'll come back out here for next time.